Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, The Hidden Connection Between Engagement and Safety, Discover the Path to a Safer and Healthier Workforce. This event, brought to you by ISHN, is sponsored by All-Star Incentive Marketing. I'm your moderator, Maureen Brady, Managing Editor of ISHN. Thanks for joining us. Today's presenter is Brian Galanik, President of All-Star Incentive Marketing. Mr. Galanik is one of only 35 certified professionals of incentive marketing and the former president of the Incentive Technology Council. All-Star Incentive Marketing is a 40-plus-year-old company, one of the nation's top suppliers of safety recognition and rewards programs, and a past winner of the IMA Circle of Excellence Award for Best Safety Incentive Program. Before we begin the presentation, I want to provide you with a few housekeeping items. To the left of the slide area, you will find a resource box. This allows you to click Help for technical difficulties, enlarge slides for better viewing, or download slides for a printable copy of today's presentation. You can even invite a friend to join us. If you need additional assistance, you can email webinars@bmpmedia.com. Above the resource box, there is a blank questions box that allows you to type a question in the box and then hit the Submit Question button to send it to us. Later in the live program, our presenter will address as many questions as possible. During the program, you will be presented with poll questions. They will appear in a pop-up window. Select your answer directly inside the poll window, not in the question box. Please make sure your pop-up blocker is disabled. It's also possible that a poll question could pop up under your browser, depending on your personal settings. Today's event is being recorded and archived at www.ishn.com. All registered participants will receive an email within 1 to 2 business days that has a link to view a recording of this event. And now I'm excited to turn it over to today's presenter, Brian Galanik.
Thank you, Maureen, and welcome, everyone. I really appreciate you being with us here today. Let's jump right in and let's talk about what we're going to learn during today's presentation. We're going to learn why engagement is the key to driving safe behavior, and this is really the crux of the presentation. We're going to learn how to improve engagement through the use of recognition, incentive, and wellness programs. And we're going to learn how to brand and communicate your safety program to drive maximum engagement and success. Essentially, how to use engagement as a tool towards improving safety. You'll also receive detailed information about resources and other potential partners at the end of the presentation. In short, if you were to picture this presentation as something like a great safety culture, something tangible like a house, your safety program would be the structure itself, the communications and engagement, the wiring, and recognition and rewards, the electricity that makes it work. Looking at this graphic, these 3 circles that overlap in the middle, this is called the hidden connection, and we're going to return to this graphic several times throughout the presentation and show you how it all comes together to produce a great safety culture in the middle. The role of engagement. Pretty simple graphic here on this page, but it tells a very powerful story, which is that as engagement increases, safety improves. That's essentially what that's meant to project there. And there's a direct correlation between the level of employee engagement and safety performance. Improve employee engagement to improve safety. This is really looking outside of safety in order to improve it. Okay, it's not PPE and not your typical training. It's a question of saying, I've done a lot of these other things, or most of them. We have a good safety culture. Where do I go next to improve what my company is currently doing? Maureen mentioned that there's going to be several poll questions. Actually, it's going to be 3. They're all short and sweet and have multiple choice answers, so I'd ask you just to answer them as quickly as you could. And we're going to push the results before we move on so everyone can see what their fellow safety manager on the call thinks of these questions. So the first question is this: what percentage of your workforce do you think demonstrates a strong commitment to your company? 4 options here: 0 to 24%, 25 to 49, 50 to 74, or 75 to 100. We're going to talk about the connection and the correlation between employee engagement and a commitment to their company, and safety, of course. And so I want to just take a look and see what the people on the phone see as the connection. So what percentage of your workforce do you think demonstrates a strong commitment to your company? I'm going to give it another few seconds here. I see the answers coming in right now. Great, thank you. Okay, so I see that the strongest area of correlation, or the belief is that the strongest area of correlation is 25 to 49%. Coming in second is 50 to 74%, followed by 75 to 100, and really only a handful of you think that your employees, have a 0 to 24% commitment to their company. The truth is, if we can move to the next slide, according to a study conducted by Human Capital Institute, only 11% of today's workforce demonstrates a very strong commitment to their company. Okay, so if you were to use the average number from the previous slide from these poll results, I think I saw something around the area of 40 or 45%. This actually makes the people on the phone here today a little more informed than perhaps other groups that I've talked to. But still, if you look at it as 44%, you essentially estimate 4 times higher level of your employees actually demonstrate a strong commitment to your company. The point here is that commitment to one's company really is a reflection of level of engagement. And a low level of engagement is a reflection, as it relates to safety, to what actually results in a poor safety culture. So we'll come back to that point here in a minute. Let's talk about the power of engagement. Some statistics for you to look at here, and again, these resources are identified in the back of the presentation. 85% of employees see a link between their level of motivation and the quality and quantity of their work, 85%. Disengaged employees cost the U.S. economy $416 billion annually. I know in today's news, no matter what you're looking at, billions and trillions are tossed around very, very casually, but $416 billion is an enormous amount of money and directly related to employees being disengaged. Turnover is 13% lower in organizations with a high level of engagement. Turnover is very much a safety issue. Not directly, but indirectly it is. I think we all know that companies that have high levels of turnover experience higher safety problems insofar as you have employees covering shifts that they don't normally cover. You have new employees that are just recently hired driving routes and doing tasks that they don't normally do. All of that typically results in more accidents, injuries, and claims. Gallup also found that an employee's relationship with his manager was the largest factor in employee engagement, something around 70%. High engagement firms, to stick with the stats here for a minute, have an earnings per share, an EPS growth rate of 28% compared with an 11% decline for low engagement firms. Why does that matter to the people on the phone here today? Why are we talking about earnings per share? Well, at some point during the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about who owns engagement and the importance of how to get these programs implemented and funded. And one case you may have to make to your boss or the operations manager, what have you, is that there's real money behind the scenes here. There's real money to be saved or made behind the scenes by improving engagement and, of course, lowering your incident rate. And engaged employees are more productive, profitable, safer, create stronger customer relationships, and stay longer with their company. That's a Gallup poll from 2006, but that's been repeated many times in other studies since. So if we come back to our hidden graphic, just to start to fill in the blanks here, you can see that engagement initiatives, the things that companies do, and you're already doing some for sure. Part of what we're going to make a case for here today is that there are other things to be done and there are ways to improve those things that you are doing. But one of the 3 main points we're trying to make here today is that engagement, employee engagement, and employees' relationship with their boss, with their direct manager, is critical to improving safety. Just to throw out another stat here for you, according to SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Manager, they did a report and they said that Molson Coors, in a study, saved $1.7 million in a single year, citing an example where the average cost of a safety incident for engaged employees was $63 compared to the average cost for disengaged employees of $392. Okay? We know that safety is a very number-driven thing. I've been doing this for 23 years. I know a lot of safety managers. I've seen all the spreadsheets about accident and incident rate and spending. So we know we have the numbers that back up what our current safety performance is. The real question is, how do you go ahead and tie that back into something like engagement? And Molson Coors did that. And what they did was, of course, by surveying their workforce and asking them a series of questions, they found out their level of engagement. Then by studying accidents and claims that the company had experienced over a period of several years, they were actually able to determine that the average cost of a claim experienced by an engaged employee was as low as $63, but while a disengaged employee was as high as $392. That's a 6-to-1 fold difference. And again, speaks to the importance of engaging employees. Engagement is particularly well suited for addressing proactive behavior-based goals, and that's really what this slide is meant to speak to. Proactive impact, reinforcing safe work behaviors, suggestions, near-miss reporting, team meetings, VPP programs. Okay, all of these things benefit from having higher levels of engagement. It's not enough just to slap it on the wall, to put out a black and white poster and expect that people are going to really feel engaged in a program. You really need to take the extra steps that we'll talk about here today to make sure they are. Promote safety awareness at work, in the car, and at home. I think we all know that safety is 24/7, 365. We're not just looking for our employees to be safe on the job, we're also looking for them to be safe on the road in their home lives and in their family lives as well. And one way you can really get there is through better engagement. Increased retention of safety-sensitive employees. As I spoke to earlier, retention or turnover is very much a safety issue. Enhanced working environment, well-being, team building, social reinforcement. Again, all of this leads to a greater safety culture. Promote learning and reinforce training, another way in which proactively engagement can lead to a safer workforce. Let's come back to our graphic here right now and put in another piece of the puzzle. Safety programs, and what that means here collectively from a very high view is everything you're doing, mentoring, first responders, training, OSHA materials, whatever you're currently doing to form your safety program. And you can see the overlap with engagement initiatives, either ones you currently have or ones that you could have. And then we'll come back to this again here and add the other circle and tell you how it all comes together to connect. So who owns engagement? I alluded to this a little while ago talking about the money side. It might seem natural for HR, operations, sales and marketing, perhaps safety, but which department is it? Well, when managers are disengaged, their employees are over 3 times as likely to be disengaged and 33% more likely to be frustrated with the company. All right? So we know it's a question of where the manager connects to the employee. The managers are responsible, and therefore the departments closest to the employees are responsible for engagement. In most cases, the national sales manager does not interact with your safety-sensitive employee, or even your HR department may have very little interaction. Safety does affect all areas of the company, from production to quality to product cost and job satisfaction. So we can't be shy about going to these other for support, particularly after we've proven the concept. But the main takeaway here is that if no one else is doing it, safety may have to. Okay, if no one else is really running with the idea that a more highly engaged employee is going to be a better employee and a more productive employee, and for that matter a safer employee, if you can't get sales to run with that, if you can't get operations to run with that, well then maybe the safety team has to do that. And I've seen that as practical examples in some of the customers that we work with. And I'll come back to that here near the end of the presentation. So what are some of the strategies for engagement? I mean, you can really do this anywhere along the way where you have contact with your employees. Health and wellness programs are great examples, and I'll touch on that a little bit further here as well, because there's a direct correlation between wellness and safety, and that connection can be very powerful in terms of benefiting safety performance. Training and development, both safety and non-safety related training and development programs. These are moments where you have staff in front of your workers in a position to actually impart upon them knowledge and engage them in a way that will make them more likely to care about the topic at hand. And so those are natural engagement opportunities. Very often they're wasted. Very often the meetings themselves, these engagement opportunities, are more vanilla than they should be, and as a result you might lose the audience. Safety team meetings and ad hoc meetings, tailgate meetings, pre-shift meetings, these are all great examples as well, and good opportunities to really ramp up engagement. New employee orientations and mentoring programs. It's best to get them right out of the gate if you can, in terms of making them understand that the company they work for really understands and cares about safety programs. Suggestion programs and employee surveys. Surveys in particular, and quizzes for that matter, but particularly surveys, give you a great method for finding out from your workforce what they see in their day-in, day-out job. Asking them questions about what it means to be a worker on the job and getting direct feedback from them, not filtered through your management layer, so you can really see how they're performing their duties. According to a study by Gallup, 86% of engaged employees said they would characterize their interactions with coworkers as always positive. If you think back to the beginning of this presentation, we don't have a high level of engaged employees. Most companies don't anyway, and therefore 86% is a big number, but it's a big number on a small percentage. Okay, 86% of 11% is not a huge number here. The idea is to get a larger number of engaged employees and then watch the benefits that relate to them feeling a direct connection with their coworkers. Typical program components excuse me, for a wellness program. So healthy eating and nutrition, weight loss, exercise and fitness, these are all areas that I'm sure are very clear to people. If you have a wellness program in your company, you probably have some sort of a healthy eating component to it. You undoubtedly have an exercise component to it. All of these things ultimately lead to weight loss, and weight loss, of course, is one of the most easy to understand and recognize benefits of a wellness program. You also might see social responsibility, disease management, which could be inclusive of tobacco cessation, or financial health. The 7 that I just read, the 7 that you see there on the screen, these actually are the 7 components of All-Stars, of my company's internal wellness program. I have a customer that's actually using conditioning, nutrition, rest, and stretching. Okay, that's the 4 components of their program: conditioning, nutrition, rest, and stretching. And the reason is their company is largely comprised of what they call, and undoubtedly some of you on the phone call, industrial athletes. These are people who are on their feet all day, who are lifting heavy objects, and really need to be as fresh as they can be at the end of the day as they were at the beginning, to avoid having breakdowns and to avoid having injuries. Okay, we have another customer who has a safety department who took on wellness as a safety issue and then handed it off to HR. And the reason I bring that up is more or less what I was talking about earlier. They couldn't get HR or anyone else to really run with it. They decided to take it on, and after they took it on and showed the connection between wellness and safety and the savings that there was to be had there, they were able to actually hand it back off. And hand it back off in this case means, as much as anything else, it means go get budget money from other departments who had a vested interest in seeing that program continue. They proved the concept, basically took the lead within the organization, and then watched others follow. So the wellness linked to safety, let's talk a little bit more about that. I think when I make this case here on some of these points, I think you'll see very clearly what I'm talking about, and I'm sure there's others you could picture here as well. But obesity is linked to sleep apnea, and sleep apnea is linked to driving safety. Okay, that's a direct one-to-one correlation. We know that obesity is linked to sleep apnea. Sleep apnea, by definition, means getting a poor night's sleep, not getting enough REM sleep. And if that's what you're doing, and then you're driving or operating heavy equipment for a company, you're undoubtedly less than safe employee, and one that's more likely to get in an accident. Okay, by reducing obesity, clearly we could actually improve safety among people who are drivers or heavy equipment operators. Poor fitness is linked to exhaustion, which is linked to mental and physical mistakes. Clearly, again, that worker who's working on the back of a truck, jumping on and off, let's say maybe a dump truck, day in, day out, lifting heavy objects, if that person is exhausted after lunch and can barely lift their arms up, they're much more likely to A, do a poor job, and B, get hurt on the job, or, unfortunately, possibly cause the injury of somebody else. Poor diet is linked to low energy, obviously also linked to accidents. And smoking, stress, obesity, and other ailments, if you will, are all linked to absenteeism, and absenteeism is very much linked to safety as well. Again, if you have 50 workers going out on the job and 5 call in sick, and you're covering those 5 jobs with workers that are either working a second shift or working a shift they don't normally work, you're going to have a less safe audience by definition. These are a few of the direct benefits, but the indirect benefits can be much greater, and the savings as a result of improving wellness can be huge. To draw a little more emphasis on that point, I've got a simple chart here. You can go to, these come from Go Work Well, but there are plenty of other sources out there that have this type of data, and you can see the actual cost to individual companies for these types of situations. So you see the average annual cost to a company who employs an obese worker is $5,000 a year. Tobacco is at $4,200 a year. The average incremental annual cost for insuring a tobacco user is $1,400 a year. That's just the incremental insurance cost for employing a tobacco user. Okay, so you can see that if you were able to run a user rewards and recognition program as part of your wellness program, okay, and if as part of that there was an incentive component, and part of that incentive component induced people to quit smoking and stay quit, the company realizes a real strong financial benefit. And just to spend a minute on that, if you're looking for an example of how that would work, the Wall Street Journal last year actually put out a study that said a person who quit smoking was 4 times more likely to stay quit if they were offered incentives along the way. Okay, so how would I do that within a wellness program, and how did I do that with my own company? What we did was to say to anybody that chose to quit smoking that if they essentially signed an affidavit that said they were going to quit, picked a day and then started, okay, we would give them 50 points the day they started. And I'd give them 100 points when they reach the 1-week period of quitting, and another 100 points when they reach a month, and perhaps 200 points at 3 months, and another 200 points at 6 months. Okay, you can make up whatever you want right now for the value of a point, but let's say for the sake of argument that all those points collectively come out to $300. Okay, the points themselves don't vest until the person reaches this 6-month milestone. So along the way in my custom branded wellness program, I'm giving them these points, probably in the form of a printed voucher. Okay, it has a tangible value associated to it, but they don't vest, which means the points aren't live until and unless they make it to the 6-month finish line. If they make it to the 6-month finish line, all the points vest, I, as an employer, may spend $300 or even more giving them points that they go ahead and redeem for golf clubs or TVs or DVD players, whatever they choose to. All the studies show that if a smoker quits and stays quit through 6 months, they're much more likely to stay quit for good. As a result, I've spent a relatively small amount of money to get a smoker off the books and turn them into a non-smoker, and over a period of time, save the company money. Now, if you're an employee who has 5 employees, if you're an employer who has 5 employees, and one of them smokes and quits, I wouldn't sit there and wait for the check in the mail to show your savings. But I think many of us here on the phone that have hundreds, if not thousands, of workers realize that if over a period of time you're able to get your obesity level down or your level of smokers down, there is a direct savings to the company. And again, not just on wellness-related money, but also on safety-related money. I'm going to jump to the power of recognition here and talk briefly about properly designed recognition and rewards programs, because I've alluded to them several times, whether it was part of the wellness discussion or your safety program. A properly designed program, a recognition and reward program, an incentive program by any other name, okay? In some cases that word seems to have taken on a bad connotation, but I would make the case that it should not. Nevertheless, I want to talk about what I'm talking about here, and I'm talking about recognizing and rewarding people for good behavior, for behavior that makes my company safer and more profitable. A properly designed one will add emphasis to all elements of our safety program. Okay, we will use that program to emphasize through training, reinforcement, and surveys and quizzes and what have you, the learning process that we're looking for. A properly designed recognition and reward program will optimize your engagement strategy, everything we're talking about right here, right now. It will motivate proactive safe behavior. It'll elevate employee communications. I want to talk more here in a couple of slides about the real importance of branding and communication. It will tie initiatives together like safety and wellness. It's one thing to have these two initiatives separately, but as I've already explained so far, the idea of bringing them together makes them both more powerful. And it'll improve employee engagement at all levels. Recognition and reward programs are the glue that hold everything else together. I think I referred to them at the beginning of this presentation as the electricity in that house analogy, but they're very much the glue as well that ties together these different initiatives. So if we bounce back to our graphic, you can see now that we've added at the bottom recognition and reward programs, overlapping with a safety program, overlapping with our engagement initiatives, with a great safety culture in the middle. There's still something missing from that slide, and we'll come back to that in a minute, and that's going to be the connection points between the individual circles, and that very much is an extremely powerful and important element to what we're discussing. For the moment, though, I want to jump to our second poll question. Again, it's multiple choice, and I want to push you the answers for your own benefit, so if I can ask you to just take a quick look, quickly answer the question. I'm going to stall here for about 45 seconds, and then we'll push you the results. The question is, if you have concerns about implementing a safety recognition and rewards program, aka an incentive program, what are they? I've been doing seminars, safety-related webinars now for several years, and I have answers from past years that I'll share with you here as well. But I want to get a feel for this question from you. If you have concerns about implementing a safety incentive program, what are they? And you can check all that apply. You don't have to just check one. Check all that apply, but only the ones that really speak to you. And again, as I stall here for just a minute, wait for enough responses to come in to be significant, we will then push the results. Before we do push them out, and while you're still answering the question, I can tell you that there is a good way of dealing with any one of these concerns. And obviously, if you were able to identify the right agency, call it incentive agency, call it a consultant, if you will, they should be able to advise you on the best way of dealing with these issues from a standpoint of implementing a safety incentive program. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and push out what we have? All right. Still not surprising. I've been, as I said, doing this for 23 years, and I go to a lot of shows. One of the main concerns that safety managers have still to this day, as evidenced by this poll result, is accident and injury hiding. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but let me just say quickly right up front that accident and injury hiding is something that can be completely avoided through the use of a properly built recognition and reward program. I don't mean we can find a way around it. I mean, not only can we find a way around it, what I'm saying basically is we can find a way to mitigate those circumstances and actually get less accident and injury hiding through an incentive solution and not more. And I'll come back to explaining that in a minute. Lack of management support is another one that's pretty high up on the list, and for good reason, and same thing with cost of the program. And it makes perfect sense that those two would go hand in hand, right? Lack of management support essentially means, management isn't willing to throw money at it. And if that's the case, then needless to say, you need to be able to make the case to management why they need to do this, at least in a test program. And hopefully I'm giving you some, and there's plenty more ammunition to go in there and make that case to your boss. So if we jump to the next slide, let's talk about the power of incentives for a minute. And this is just a handful of bullets of statistics here. I could give you pages and pages, and feel free to drop us an email after the fact, and we'll do so. But 84.7% of respondents said that their company's safety consciousness increased as a result of their safety incentive program. Incentive programs aimed at individuals increased performance by 27%, and long-term incentive programs are more than twice as powerful than short-term incentive programs. One last stat here. 92% of corporations reported that objectives were surpassed, met, or at least partially met through the use of incentive programs. This is Gallup and Towers Perrer and Occupational Health and Safety and Site Foundation stats, and again, all of which can be expanded on with the material we'll give you after the presentation. In this presentation, we're talking about how well incentive and engagement programs work together to improve safety. It's important to note that incentive and recognition solutions are also powerful tools in general. To give you one example, All-Star has a client that when we launched the safety incentive program for them, the website that we built for them, that we promoted, ended up getting 20 times as much traffic as their intranet site. Now, their company intranet site had, as I'm sure most of yours does as well, information about their 401k, about health insurance, about benefits, information that, generally speaking, most employees should care a great deal about. And yet the recognition and rewards program, both because it's where they house their points and have the awards in it, but of course it was also loaded with all the safety messaging that made them safer on the job, that was getting all the traffic. What we decided to do with their request is to make the path to that program, the path to that incentive website, through their intranet site, thereby increasing 20-fold the traffic through their intranet site and making it much more likely that employees were going to see, again, their health care benefits, their 401k information, and other information that it was important for the company for them to see. The main point here is simply this: that had nothing to do with safety, and yet because the safety incentive solution was so powerful and so prominent, it was used from an operational standpoint to improve what else was going on in the company. I talked about the positive of safety incentive programs. Let me just quickly mention some common mistakes. Let me come back to the biggest concern that people on the phone had here, which was accident and injury hiding. This slide here will address very briefly why that's a non-issue if a program is built properly. Let me first start by talking about branding. Lack of branding and communication for a program is a very common mistake. Very often we have companies out there that we start to do business with that we find out are basically hanging the OSHA posters on the wall, putting out something fairly vanilla, fairly black and white, words on a page, perhaps doing a little bit of conversation at safety meetings and what have you, and really not putting a brand name on their program. They're using, quite frankly, some sort of scratch-off bingo card, and there's really not a lot of emphasis behind it. One of the biggest mistakes you can make, I'm going to drill down on branding here in a little bit and try to make the point more clear to you, but it's enormously important to put a brand name on your safety program and to promote it that way. Not clearly establishing goals and performance expectations up front. Your workforce wants to know that they're part of something. Your workforce wants to know what the goal is, and your workforce wants to know that they're part of solving problems that the company has. So it's enormously important to actually not just sit in a boardroom and say, we want to reduce claims by 10%, but to go out there and actually talk about that and promote it properly in your company so that everybody in the company knows what the goals are and what they're doing to contribute to reaching those goals. Using cash instead of tangible awards. Cash is a bad motivator. It's a terrible motivator. I could do an entire presentation, in fact I have, on this because most people kind of roll their eyes, although if you're on this presentation, then the title of the presentation caught your eye a little bit, and you probably have some idea already that cash is a bad motivator. But it really is. If I gave you $50 last year for being safe on the job, you have no idea what you did with it. And some people will say, well, I don't give my guys cash, I give them gas cards. Well, a gas card is cash. There's no such thing as a memorable tank of gas. And for that matter, some people might say, well, I don't give them gas cards or cash, I give them a Home Depot gift card. Well, that's the same thing. I mean, Home Depot does sell some barbecue grills, but most people don't. Most people go in there with a $100 gift card, don't buy a barbecue grill with it, okay? Most people, when they go into the gift card that they might have got in their safety incentive program, buy mulch, batteries, light bulbs, motor oil, and none of which is memorable. And if you can't control what they're redeeming for, and if they're redeeming for gas or cash or things like mulch, you're not giving them anything that ties the performance back to the actual safety incentive itself, and therefore you don't actually get a safer workforce. You're really, quite frankly, wasting money if you're handing out cash as an award. Even though, and I openly admit, even though if you asked everybody in your company what they want, they would all tell you they want cash, I would tell you that I want cash too. It's not a question of what they want, it's a question of what you want, and as a safety manager, you're looking for a safer workforce, and the way to get there is to use recognition, use engagement, and use a properly built rewards program. Rewarding entire groups for group behavior. Okay, this and the next two, using exceedingly high value awards and introducing the element of chance, those three things wrapped together are the reason why some safety incentive programs, at least the ones that were built 10, 20, and 30 years ago by companies that were used to doing it this way, those are the reason why companies are sometimes afraid of accident and injury hiding. When you take your entire workforce and you roll them together, let's say it was everybody on the second shift or everybody at a plant, and you say to that workforce, everybody's going to get a chance to win a pickup truck for every month you're safe on the job. And you throw their name in a hat, and then you pick one name out of a hat, and one guy wins a pickup truck and 999 guys win nothing. You demotivate them. Worse yet, if you say every time everybody on the shift is safe on the job, we're going to throw everybody's name in a hat, and I'm the guy who rolls my ankle in a given month, or I'm the guy who puts a dent in a forklift, I'm not likely going to want to report that, because I don't want to be the one who cost everybody on the second shift their award, whether their award was cash or a gift card, points in a program, or for that matter, a chance to win a pickup truck. This is how you get people hiding accidents and injuries, and the only way you get it. Okay, if you communicate group goals, if you tell them right up front that we want to get a 10% drop in claims, and if you then build, through using engagement solutions, if you then build rewards and recognition programs that give them points specifically for their accomplishments, i.e., I'm going to give you 50 points, John Doe, for making a good safety suggestion, and I'm going to give you, Jane Doe, 10 points for taking a survey, and I'm going to give you 25 points for having a perfectly safe quarter. If you reward them for their individual behavior, they will not hide an accident or injury, period. Does not work that way. Okay? But if you tie them all together and you say that the one guy who has an accident is going to cost everybody on his shift their points, they might go ahead and hide that accident. If you strip that out, if you reward for individual behavior but communicate group goals, you will not have any issue with what was, according to the slide a few slides back, your biggest concern, which is hiding of accidents and injuries. All right? A couple other thoughts on this slide real quick. I put them on here in quotations just because they speak to me. These are paraphrased things from other business presentations, but your safety program is designed perfectly for the results you are getting. I don't know why that speaks to me so much, but I like to use it in my presentations. You're getting exactly what you deserve. And I don't mean that in the negative way it might sound, but what I'm saying is everything you're doing, every part of your program, from VPP to OSHA posters to rewards programs if you're using them, whatever you're currently doing and the way you're doing it is getting you the results. So there's no sense sitting there lamenting the fact that the results aren't what they are or aren't what you want them to be. Know that what you're putting in is directly responsible for what you're getting out, and think outside the box a little bit about what you have to do differently. And that really leads to the second quote there, one I'm sure we've all heard many times over and over again. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is insanity. You really do need to take a step sideways and look at something different in order to affect change. I mentioned the power of branding earlier, and I want to come back to that here. I actually did an entire presentation on this as well, but let me just quickly summarize this for you. There are 2.1 billion loyalty program members in the U.S., 2.1 billion. That's huge. The average household is signed up for 18.4 programs, and that's up from 14 just a few years ago, so these are actually increasing. They're not declining. On the right side of the screen, you see Marriott and Delta SkyMiles and American Express and Harrah's Rewards, programs that I'm sure some of you recognize. And this could be, I could also have the Subway Club card up there. And, Disney has a points program, the kids earn points, and all of these things are designed to build loyalty. And why do they do it? Why do they have billions of people in? Why do they spend billions of dollars getting people to join their loyalty programs? Why do they use those programs to give away freebies to keep people coming back? It's because they work, and they work exceedingly well. Okay, if you're a member of the Marriott Rewards program, you're far more likely to stay in a Marriott when you travel, and that's what Marriott cares about. What does this have to do with safety? You're wondering, I hope. You're probably wondering if you're listening. What it has to do with safety is this. These programs are built to work with human nature. Okay, and human nature, the same human nature that makes me want to stay at a Marriott if I'm a member of a Marriott Rewards program is what makes me want to be a better team player in a rewards program built within my company and built around safety. Okay, the reason they work, they're branded. They're branded, and they're communicated incessantly, and there's rewards built into them as well. Okay, and it's the same thing you need to do within your safety culture. You do need to put a brand name on it. Don't just put it out the door as some scratch-off card game. Don't put it out the door as some black and white poster hanging on a wall. It needs to be the dedicated to safety, safety first, safe ops rewards program, whatever you want to call it. Put a brand name on it. Promote it as a brand name. Put it in lights. Put it on posters. Put it on flyers. Use a point voucher when you hand out points for good performance. And really treat it as a brand and promote it as a brand. The truth is, when you get this thing right, any person in the company you ask, what's the name of our safety program, they should know the answer. Okay, and that's really the idea behind this. You need to put a brand name on your program. It's just as important for you as it is for Coca-Cola or Walt Disney. So back to our graphic, and really the only pieces that I hadn't filled in before, and you see those connection points between the three circles, okay, and it's all branding and communication. What we're basically saying here is you take your recognition and reward program, take your engagement initiatives, the ones you're doing and the ones you could do. Take your safety programs, the actual bread and butter of what you're already doing, okay? Look at how they overlap. Enhance the branding and communications between the three things, okay? Enhance the branding and communication between your engagement initiative as it relates to communicating your recognition and rewards program, as it relates to reinforcing what you want them to do from a safety standpoint, and you will get a great safety culture in the middle. And if you already have a good safety culture, this type of emphasis will actually move you from good to great. In fact, I would tell you right up front, if you're on the phone and you're listening to this presentation and you're thinking to yourself, we are way behind, we're not ready for this. If you're thinking to yourself the type of solutions I'm talking about here, if you're thinking, well, we don't have good equipment and we don't have good training and our managers aren't enthusiastic, or we don't even have a good management level, and up and down the line you have these systemic problems, and you're thinking to yourself, you're not ready for this, you're right. You're not ready for it. And I would tell anybody I ever talk to, it's not the first thing I would do. Absolutely not the first thing I would do. But if I have audit processes in place, if I have a good safety culture, if my safety number is plus or minus on the industry standard, okay, if I have meetings and I have good equipment and good training on the equipment and good people in place, and again, we've done a pretty good job, and now we're sitting there saying, well, what do we do next? How are we going to stop staving off these increases, and how are we going to turn the tide in the other direction? Well, this is the answer to your solution. Okay, this is the solution to your problem, I guess I should say. Better engagement and better utilization of these types of tools. Okay, before I wrap up the presentation, and really this is the end, I wanted to just quickly ask you another question. And to your benefit, I think you're going to want to see the answers to this one, just because you're on the phone right now, even though it's a one-way conversation, you're on the line with hundreds of other safety managers, and those safety managers, just like yourself, have a budget, and those safety managers obviously are concerned year in, year out of what's going to happen to that budget. So I want to ask this question and ask you to just push answers as quickly as you can here. How is your safety budget likely to change over the next 12 months? I'm going to show you the results from 2009 and 2010 and let you see for yourself, what your fellow coworkers had to say in this similar presentation over the last couple of years. But we have 5 options here. Is it going to decrease substantially, decrease slightly? Is it going to stay the same? Do you expect it to increase slightly, or do you expect it to increase substantially? I'm going to give this another 30 seconds here because I do see the answers coming in. And when we're all done, we'll tell you exactly what that looks like. And once I show you what you guys said, I'm going to show you what people said exactly 1 year ago and exactly 2 years ago. And I think it does speak to what we're all dealing with in the economy. All right, I think we see enough coming in here. Let's go ahead and push those. Again, some good responses here, and a lot of them, so I'll give you some idea. And stay the same is the winner by quite a bit. So 53% of you think your budget's going to stay the same this year. I guess to a certain extent that's encouraging. If I add up the two numbers on the low side, the decrease substantially or decrease slightly, we're looking at about 21% think their budgets are going down, and about 25%, if you add up the other two, think they're going up, and 53% or so feel they're going to stay the same. If we go ahead and move to the next slide, we'll actually see the results from the past couple of years. So in 2010, well, actually, let me go back to 2009 first, the most pessimistic year. And I think if we all remember what 08 was like heading into 09, I don't think there's any surprise here. In a 2009 survey asking the exact same question, people on my webinar, the safety managers, felt that 56% of them thought their budget was going to decline. 30% thought it'd stay the same, and 14% thought it would increase. Last year, that same question, 18% saw a decline, 53% saw the same, and 29% thought it might increase. I guess looking at these 2011 numbers, they're much closer to the 2010 numbers. They're probably down a tick from 2010, which might speak a little bit to austerity and concern, but certainly far, far better than 2009. So I think we've certainly, if you're looking at safety budgets as a partial indicator as to where we stand, I think much like the 09 to 2010 numbers, the 09 to 2011 numbers, which still show some pretty positive side of things, that it looks like budgets are at least not going to get slashed, and in some cases may still be growing. Okay? The next slide here will simply show you briefly some of the resources and references that are here. Don't bother scribbling them down. As I think Maureen said when we first started, you can download right off of this presentation and through the email you'll get after the entire presentation, which will have all the references in it as well. And it'll also have the poll questions. If you want the poll results, the full poll results, because people are still answering those questions now, you're welcome to push an email to All-Star after the fact, and we'll go ahead and send you the finalized presentation with the poll results as well. And Maureen, with that, I'll turn it back over to you for Q&A.
The first question is, what is a memorable, tangible award?
Great question. A memorable, tangible award is not the same for me as it would be for Maureen. And Maureen, I apologize, but for you, it might be a wonderful Coach bag, or maybe a TV set. Maybe we would have the same one. For me, it'd be a TV to watch the game on. For somebody else, it's going to be a fishing pole, and for someone else, it's going to be a golf club. The point is, and for someone else, it's going to be a shop vac, okay, or a lawnmower. We don't know exactly what's going to get people excited. The one thing I know, and the point I was trying to make when I brought this up before, is that mulch is not going to get them excited. Okay, light bulbs are not going to get them excited. I think I can say that with a fair degree of confidence. Nor is a tank full of gas. While they're filling up the tank of gas, they might be excited about it because they knew they weren't paying for it. But that feeling would not last, and it would never be attached back to safety. Now, give me a golf club, and I am a golfer. Okay. And let me go out there. Let's say I'm an average golfer, and let's say I would never spend the kind of money it would take to go buy a brand new Callaway golf club. All right? But there's one sitting all shiny and bright in my rewards program, and for 300 points I can redeem for it. I pick that golf club. I have it shipped to me. I use my points to get it so I don't feel guilty. It didn't cost me any money. And then I go use it, and I go golf with my buddies, and, of course, everybody wants to know where I got the new golf club. And when I bang it right down the middle with that thing, it further emphasizes the point. And you can come up to me 5 years later and say to me, "Where'd you get that club?" or "How'd you end up coming into having this club?" And I'm still going to remember. That's the memorable side. Memorable is that if it's tangible, and if I picked it out, and if it had that type of desire for that item to begin with, it's going to be memorable, and it's going to be tangible because I can't just spend it, or burn it as I would gasoline.
Okay. The next question is, define long-term and short-term incentive programs. Are short-term 1 month, 3 months, etc.?
Short-term would be 1 month, 3 months, somewhere in that range. I wouldn't say once you get to 6 months, 9 months and above, I would certainly say you're dealing with long-term. But this is really, the difference here is, in All-Star Incentive Marketing, my company, we don't just do safety incentive programs. We do Salesforce incentive programs, and we do customer loyalty programs and other similar as well. And those types of programs very often will benefit from short-term programs that hit hard and then perhaps stop and then maybe come back to something else later. Safety, quite frankly, there's no such thing as a short-term safety incentive program. Certainly, if they're working, you'll never want to shut them down, and if they're built properly, they will work. I think what you do more in a safety program and a safety recognition and rewards program is have a long-term program with long-term elements to the program, but then maybe have short-term spiffs within the program. So within some of the programs that we do, even though the program is always going on and never going to go away, it's the dedicated to safety rewards program, and it's going to be here for years and years and years because it's producing a great savings and reduction in claims for the employer and great rewards for the employee. But within that program, we might have some short-term opportunities to do things like a kids coloring contest. These are real examples, by the way. A safety suggestion program, a slogan contest, where the slogan contest is where employees can make suggestions of a safety slogan. The winning slogan will get 100 points and will be used for the rest of the year, for an entire year, as the safety slogan tagline to the program. Okay. The surveys and quizzes are good short-term opportunities to engage the workforce. The kids coloring contest was great. We've taken in very many of my programs. We'll put line art drawings of of a parent, let's say mom or dad on the job, and let parents download these pictures, have the kids color them and send them in. Of course, we'll give bonus points to people who send in the pictures, and then we'll put those pictures on the award site and leave them up there for a month. It's a great short-term, program, if you will, within a program. But otherwise, when it comes to safety, there really is no option but to run something long-term, especially once it proves beneficial.
Okay. Is it possible to pilot test programs like the one you're describing?
I would say it's not just possible, it's prudent, and it's the way you should go. I know full well that the programs we create, and not just us, there are others in the industry that do a great job here as well, but if you engage a company who, pardon the use of the word, but if you go to a company that produces these types of programs and that has expertise on how to get your culture from a good culture to a great culture, the one thing that I think they should tell you, if they're honest with you, is no matter how confident they are, they're going to want to run a pilot program for you. There's no reason to come out the gate running the entire company, right out the door. There's just no need for that. Take the program, apply it to a region, to a division or several divisions. Take, for the sake of argument, 10, maybe 20% of the workforce that's out there, and put them in the program first, and find out where you made a mistake. I mean, hopefully you get the major points right, but there could be some small nuances to what you did that you'd want to do different. And what this will allow you to do is make those changes, save some money doing it, enhance the program further before you launch it out to either a larger region or to the entire country. But most companies, if they're honest with you, if they're not just trying to get the biggest program they can right away, will tell you that the best thing you can do is to launch it as a pilot, make adjustments, and then make it bigger.
Okay. Would company logo type items serve as a good reward for safety, or is it better to use outside merchandise?
Both. I see this question here. It's a good one, and I see who asked it. Thank you. Both. I see no reason not to use both. In most, if not many, if not most of our programs, we use both. Within the recognition and reward program, we will have a category very often that actually includes logo merchandise. So yes, the person can choose, the electronics and the housewares and the tools as an award, but one category in the actual award website might say company logo merchandise, and that company logo merchandise can be provided at a very favorable price. Especially if the person building the program also provides the merchandise. But when you put sweatshirts and jackets and hats and T-shirts in there, and some of which is redeemable at fairly low point totals, what you end up with is a double benefit. You've got them redeeming for an award, and you've got them picking something they specifically want. It wasn't like you just gave everybody a jacket and you gave them a red jacket and they can't stand red and they'll never wear it. If they go in and pick it as an award, okay, spend 50 points on it, more than likely they're doing so because they like it and they have pride in the company they work for and the award they've earned. And if they go ahead and then not only have a tangible award that they wanted, but also one that they wear that's a billboard for the program, it really is a win-win. So it's a great way to further enhance the program. And, of course, logo merchandise is a great way to kick off the program as well. Very often when we kick off a program, we will ask a company to hold back a little piece of the budget and use it to make something that we give to every employee when we launch. So it's one thing to use it as a redeemable item. It's another thing to hold the kickoff meetings, explain to them that we're ready to launch the Safety First Rewards program, and to give them a flashlight with a laser engraved logo on it that they're going to leave in their car in the glove compartment and hold on to as a reminder that that they're in this program to begin with. Logo merchandise is a great add-on in several different ways to a good safety incentive solution.
Okay. This next one is more of a statement, but employees fear if they turn in an incident form or claim for work injury, they will lose the incentive for everyone.
Right, exactly. They do fear that, but they only fear that if the program is set up that way, right? So if you tell them the opposite, if the poster, the catalog, the flyer, the voucher, the website itself, the rules and regs that go out with the program, if it's abundantly clear to them that that's not the case, which it should be, then they won't fear it because it won't be part of the rules, right? So if the rules say, hey guys, if we, if everybody has a safe quarter, everybody's going to get a $100 bill at the end of the quarter, right? Again, this violates, 2 or 3 or 4 of the worst rules of how to run a program. But let's just say that was the case. I'm going to use cash. I'm going to give it to everybody, but I'm only going to give it to everybody if everybody is safe for the entire quarter. And this is a fairly normal thing. When I say normal, we know that there are plenty of companies out there that have a sign in front of their building that says, 114 days accident-free, and that's for the entire company. And I understand the logic behind it, but I can tell you that, quite frankly, I would recommend vehemently against it. Okay, I'm the kind of guy, I'm just speculating, but I happen to be as well. The last thing I want to do is be the one to stop us from going, from 114 to 115. Now, you'd sit there and say, great, that's what's going to make you safer on the job. Yeah, but not really. Not really. Okay, I don't want to be the guy. What's going to happen is if I do have an accident, I don't want to be the one to see that tote board go down. And if I do have an accident, I don't want to be the one who has 500 guys on my shift not get the $100 bonus. So this is where accidents and injuries will get hidden. If the only person that's affected by it is me, okay, and I don't want to lose my job, I'm absolutely going to turn in the paperwork. In fact, I'll go one step further for you because I emphasized this before, and because 60% of you had concern about accident and injury hiding. Let me hit this on the other side as well. You can actually use your rewards program to reduce injury hiding. And the way you would do that is this. First of all, you would do what I already said, which is reward them for individual behavior. Communicate group goals, but reward for individual behavior. Don't tie them all together at the hip and punish one if another one has an accident. That's first and foremost. But then on top of that, let's say you do have a guy who gets injured on the job, okay, he hurts his back, all right? Rather than, or he does something he wasn't supposed to and somehow suffers an injury, or again, puts a dent in a piece of equipment, rather than so you're not going to give him his safety points. Let's say you get 25 points a month in this program for being safe, and somebody had a preventable accident, so they're not going to get their points. But let's say that person does exactly what they're supposed to do from there on in. They report the accident right away. Okay, they immediately fill out all the paperwork. They go to the doctor as they were instructed to. They go through a rehab process the way they're supposed to. They do everything they're supposed to do, and 30 days later, they're back on the job, and they completely did everything they were supposed to do from the moment that accident occurred, and they did it in a timely way. I'd probably give that person 25 points for proper handling of an accident or a claim, okay, and I would still reward them. I wouldn't reward them for being safe that month if they weren't, but I'd reward them for the way they did that, because I know people on the phone here today know full well that when somebody has an accident, when somebody hurts their ankle, the likelihood they're going to cause greater damage if they limp around on it for 3 days while trying to figure out what to do. That's what I would do. I would actually use it to reward people for following procedure right as it related to that accident.
Okay. From the articles I've read about OSHA and incentive programs, I get the impression that if you have an incentive program, OSHA becomes suspicious of hiding accidents. What do you think about OSHA's thought process?
I think Dr. Michaels has some of it right and some of it wrong. And I say that because I've listened to the man speak at ASSC and NSC events, and certainly read everything he's written on the subject. Dr. Michaels being, the head of OSHA. I think, and for that matter, if they're taking the direction from him, and I think OSHA as a whole is reflecting this policy, I think they're uninformed, quite frankly. And I'm doing the best I can. I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. to try to reverse this, but I think they're reflecting back on our grandfather's safety incentive program, okay, that one that gives away the pickup truck or uses cash or what have you. And I think they do have concerns. But I think in the industry, okay, in my industry, there's something called a qualified safety incentive program. A qualified safety incentive program from a legislative standpoint has been tied to the hip to a recognition program, one that would give your employees rewards for 5, 10, and 15 years on the job. And so what I mean when I say that is this. There are rules that protect, from a tax perspective, the giving out of awards to people for safety achievement. Now, there are some limitations to this, and there are some within OSHA who are just parroting something they heard 10 years ago that says, oh, we can't give out an award because it might get somebody to hide an injury. But when you show them the opposite, when you show them you built a qualified program, you didn't just slap it out the door. Again, you didn't buy some off-the-shelf program and hope it was going to help. When you show the way you're rewarding for individual behavior, and for that matter, most importantly, when you show them double-digit drop in claims year in, year out in a safer workforce and something that's well below your industry standard, they'll stand up and pay attention. They have. I mean, I've seen it happen. I think what's happening, though, is when they walk into a company with a terrible safety culture who says they're using an incentive program, and the incentive program they're using is to give away cash to an entire group and the entire group safe, stop me if you've heard this one, this is when you start to go down the wrong path, and then they say to themselves, okay, incentive's bad, and they might frown upon it. But if they see a properly built one built within the rules, one built along the lines I'm describing for you today, I don't think you'll experience any problems with OSHA.
Okay. So is safety only going to work if workers receive rewards for working safely? I get a lot of comments from workers that if they got a worthwhile reward, they would participate more than they currently do.
Yeah, well, that's really what it is, right? It's not. It's somewhat painful. It's something of a bitter pill, I openly admit. And I can tell you when I deal with companies that have European ownership, and we have to deal with management overseas, they struggle with this more than American management does. But and what I'm driving at is this: you shouldn't have to pay somebody to do the job they're already supposed to do, right? You shouldn't have to pay somebody more or give them a reward for doing what they should already want to do, right? So people don't want to come to work and get hurt. I think we know that. They don't want to come to work and damage equipment or cause accidents, right? And so if I'm already paying you to be safe, and if I'm already paying you not to damage the equipment, and if I'm already having you go to safety meetings and the like, why do I have to reward you for being safer? And my simple answer to that, I'm sorry to give this playground answer, but it really is the truth. The answer is you don't have to, but if it works, why wouldn't you? And I think the question was asked in a way that really speaks to the answer. Some people, we're talking about the margins here, right? We're not talking about every last person. There are some people in your organization that you can do anything you want. You can run a parade right down the middle of the hallway. They wouldn't even notice. They don't care, and nothing you do is going to change that. And there are some people in your company who are so safe and so comprehensive and such good employees that it doesn't make a difference if you offer them an award. They're already working as safe as they can. But then there's that middle 60%, and maybe it's 80 in your company, or maybe it's 50. But whatever it is, it's big. And it's between the margins, and that's the group you can move. And that group can be moved to pay a little more attention. That group can be moved to make a safety suggestion. You're talking about plenty of people out there who walk around a company and say, "Boy, we'd be safer if we just painted a yellow line down the middle of this hallway and made everybody walk along the left side when they were going into the warehouse," right? But they don't say anything about it. But lo and behold, if you put a 50-point bonus award for making a safety suggestion, and you make that suggestion and they get 50 points, and then it's actually implemented and they get 100 points, lo and behold, you're going to get a lot more suggestions. And overall, you end up with a safer workforce, you spend less money, and you have a higher level of engagement and a happier workforce. I mean, it is what it is. It's the same reason why, Subway makes a good product. Why do they have to give anybody points in order to come back and buy their sandwich again? Well, I don't know, but they do, and they do it because it works.
Okay. What is an average cost per year per employee as a safety incentive?
It depends on what they do. I can tell you if they're drivers, heavy equipment operators, or somebody in that type of level of safety-sensitive position, I honestly tell you, I mean, just to be completely honest with you, and that's what I am with my clients, you're not going to get very far without a budget of at least $20 per month per employee. Okay, so do the math on that. That's about $240 for a given year. If I'm out there driving a truck and I'm making $60,000 a year, and I'm in a position to really do some damage if I don't pay attention and cause an accident, you're not going to win me over by giving me $20 worth of a sweatshirt or a pizza party in a given year. Okay, but if there are bonus points attached to performance and then more points attached to above and beyond behavior, safety suggestions and the like, then you're much more likely to capture my attention. And so $20 per month per employee for people at that level, that's about what it takes. And anything north of that would only help out further. If you're talking about people that are working in factories, I don't even know, that type of line level working where there's still risk but not as high, they're not driving vehicles on the road, then you can certainly get away with less. But I think, generally speaking, you're really looking at about $100 per year, even for the least safety-sensitive position. So look at it as at least $10 a month, and perhaps $20 a month or more, depending on how risky their job is.
Okay. We have time for one more question. Some management thinks safety should be normal or part of the job versus rewarding for something they should already be doing. How do you change that thinking of management?
Well, you have to demonstrate. I don't think there's any. So it's a lot of what we talked about, a lot of what I talked about. I'm sorry, I don't like these one-way conversations. I'd much rather have everybody, able to ask questions and in an open format like a trade show. Although, Maureen, thank you. You've got some great questions here. But I spoke to this a minute ago. I think what you need to do is fall back on the pilot program idea. Okay, most bosses, if you go in and say, okay, boss, I got 5,000 workers and it's going to cost me, $500,000 to run a full-blown safety incentive program. But by the way, I think we're going to save $2 million. Your boss is going to tell you, go pound sand. There's not $500,000 out there to be had, okay? And even if he believes you might save $2 million, he's going to tell you it ain't going to happen, right? So how do you get a manager who has that attitude that says I'm not going to pay them to do something they should already do, I'm not going to reward them for doing what they should already do, or any of those other, naysayers and points that I made along the way? What you really need to do is to go into your boss and say, boss, I'm positive, confident, if you are, and of course it's incumbent on people like myself to make sure you feel that confident. Say, I'm confident we can get a 4-to-1 return on investment by running a safety incentive program. But that said, I would never ask you for the budget money it would take to run it for the entire company. We have 8 divisions. Division number 7 is a perfect division for this program. The manager down there, the ops manager for division number 7, has already raised his hand and says he wants to do the program. He's got 400 employees. If we do a trial program, safety incentive program in that marketplace, along the lines of what I want to do when we put it out there for 6 months or 9 months, and I spend $50 to $75 or $100 a head on employees, I need $40,000 to $50,000 to go try this program out in division number 7. At which time, 9 months in, I'll be able to come back to you and show you results that will prove to you that we're going to produce savings that are 4 times greater than what we spend. Okay, a boss might go for that. The amount of money is not overbearing. They can find a way to put it out there. One of the keys to what I just said there, by the way, was making sure that the ops manager or the general manager in division number 7 truly was on board, because you want somebody who really embraces this enthusiastically from a trial standpoint. And then you actually go out there and run the trial. If it fails, and it shouldn't, if it's built properly, it absolutely should not fail. But if it fails, all you wasted was, if you want to call it waste, was $50,000. You're not going to get fired, and your boss is going to tell you to try something else next time. If it works marginally well, your boss's curiosity might be piqued, and he might tell you to run it for another 6 months and see how well it does. And if it produces the type of average results that we get, average results, which are double-digit drops in claims, the minute he sees it, he'll say, you know what, run it in 5, 6, and 7 now as a bigger trial, and a year later you'll be running it in the entire company.
Okay, that's all the time we have today, so this concludes today's webinar. Please join me in thanking Brian Galanick for his presentation, as well as our sponsor, All-Star Incentive Marketing. As you exit today's webinar, please take a couple minutes to complete our survey. We strongly welcome your detailed comments to help us serve you better. If you have any additional questions or comments, please don't hesitate to contact me at bradym@bnpmedia.com. Please visit webinars.ishn.com for the archive of this presentation, as well as information about our upcoming events. We appreciate your time and hope you have found this webinar to be a valuable experience.